Imagine dying, being buried, and then, 9 months later, someone digs you up, dresses your decomposing body in ceremonial robes, props you up on a throne, and puts you on trial. This is not a horror movie. This happened in medieval Rome. And the man responsible, a pope. The year is 897 AD. Rome is unstable, violent, and politically chaotic. This isn't the grand Renaissance Rome most people picture. Power is fragile. Alliances flip constantly. Noble families manipulate the papacy like a chess piece. At the center of this storm was a man named Pope Formosus. Formosus had climbed to the highest religious office in Western Europe. But like many popes of his era, he was deeply entangled in political rivalries. During a brutal struggle over who should rule as Holy Roman Emperor, Formosus backed the wrong faction, at least in the eyes of his enemies. In medieval politics, choosing the wrong side could destroy you. But before his rivals could fully retaliate, Formosus died. Problem solved, right? Not exactly. Enter Pope Stephen VI. Stephen VI took power shortly after Formosus's death. And he absolutely despised his predecessor. Whether out of personal hatred, political pressure, or loyalty to opposing factions, Stephen was determined not just to defeat Formosus, but to erase him. And so, in one of the most shocking acts in church history, Stephen ordered Formosus's body exhumed. 9 months after burial, the corpse was dug up, badly decomposed, and brought into a church courtroom. What happened next is almost unbelievable. They dressed the body in papal robes. They placed it on a throne. And they put it on trial. This event would later be known as the Cadaver Synod. Formosus, now a corpse, was formally accused of crimes against church law. A deacon was assigned to speak on behalf of the dead pope, essentially acting as his defense attorney. Imagine standing in court, defending a skeleton. Meanwhile, Stephen stood before the body and shouted accusations. He accused Formosus of perjury, of illegally becoming pope, of violating sacred canons, of usurping power he had no right to hold. The corpse, of course, said nothing. But that wasn't the point. This wasn't about justice. It was political theater. If Stephen could prove that Formosus had been illegitimate as pope, then every decision Formosus had made could be declared invalid. Every ordination, every appointment, every alliance. It was a medieval version of wiping the slate clean. The verdict was never in doubt. The corpse was declared guilty. Stephen ordered that Formosus's papal acts be nullified. Then came a symbolic punishment. The 3 fingers Formosus had used to give blessings were cut off. Even in death, Stephen wanted to strip him of authority. Finally, the body was dragged away and thrown into the Tiber River. Rome had officially prosecuted and punished a dead man. But here's where the story turns. The public was horrified. Even by the standards of 9th century political brutality, this was extreme. It felt unnatural, disturbing, blasphemous. Political support for Stephen collapsed. Not long after the Cadaver Synod, Stephen VI was arrested, imprisoned, and soon after, he died in custody under suspicious circumstances, widely believed to have been strangled. The man who put a corpse on trial did not enjoy a long reign. And as for Formosus, his body was later recovered from the river. Future popes reversed the verdict. His reputation was partially restored. The entire grotesque episode became a symbol of how corrupt and unstable the medieval papacy had become during this period. But here's the deeper truth. This wasn't insanity, it was power. In medieval Europe, legitimacy was everything. If you could undermine someone's legitimacy, even after death, you could dismantle their entire political network. Stephen wasn't arguing with a corpse. He was sending a message to the living. The Cadaver Synod forces us to confront something uncomfortable about history. We often imagine religious institutions as steady, sacred, and above political chaos. But in reality, they were deeply human, full of ambition, fear, rivalry, ego, and sometimes, astonishing pettiness. History isn't always noble. Sometimes it's absurd, sometimes it's theatrical, and sometimes, it's so unhinged that the only way to believe it is to read the records yourself. If you think this was wild, just wait until you hear about the emperor who declared war on the ocean. This is Wild Stories After Dark, where real events prove that the past was never boring. If you enjoyed this bizarre historical story, please remember to like